kind of has this very neat flow of information and the way it works and what gets created. So this is like, when we look at trends, this is what we say, right? We say, has the final low been hit? If the final low has been hit, has the final hold been created, right? So the final low point of the move creates your final hold. So importantly, this is the first event that happens to create the more important event of the final hold. So now you have your final trend and your final hold level. So now we actually have something we can use with trends, because this is actually creating very important hierarchy on our charts. This is creating something that's, a point of polarization. And as we go forward, this is obviously crucial information. So this is very, very important to know, right? And so what is trying to be created always is the question we ask ourselves. What is trying to be created, right? Again, we pull back to that. What is trying to be created here? It's just still distribution, because this is the weekly level. Okay, what is trying to be created? A new low in the move, because distribution is happening. And what's happening here? You're hitting the same thing. And instead of hitting the break of the move, you just adapted to whatever point this is, the greedier hold level. And as long as you haven't hit this leg of the move here, you're kind of still in that range where you're, even within that, you have the greedy weekly level up here. There's even a greedier level up here on the weekly. That would be, kind of that point where it's still in distribution technically, and still under the confines of its trend up here, right? What is trying to be created? Distribution, right? So we know the distribution is trying to be created off this level being hit. We know we were going to have a final low by just tracing through the move. We know there's going to be a final hold based on that final low. And then the final piece of this, where you see it all, and let's try to zoom out. How much viscosity does a move have, right? Versus how many trends has it broken. So we're, up to this point, it's been pretty heavy in theory. Now we are going to get to the point where the theory gets supplemented with the actual practicing of this move. So this final low hasn't been created yet. We know that hasn't been hit yet. So instead, what happens is we have trends. Like we would have had this trend at first right here. So we can walk through this move, maybe do the replayer tool here. So we have, the very first trend that gets created. We are looking to create the final low on this move. So we have trend created there. How much viscosity does it have? The amount of strength is very high. So it's not going to hit that final low because the viscosity is still too high in the move. So we hit our final low when the viscosity reduces down to zero, right? And viscosity reduces as we hit trends. So we're going to see this trend follow through. And this trend, it's still, how much viscosity does it have? It's still high because it simply hasn't broken any trends yet, right? So then we're just going to watch this move. We have our first broken trend. So now we can do this. Well, it's broken 1 out of 5 trends. So the viscosity is kind of like medium to high, somewhere in between this range, right? Medium to high. So we've broken 1 trend, and we do now have to adapt that. Okay, so we have our next point here, right? Broken 1 trend, right? Let's look at our next trend, right? And the viscosity and the way it can hold this move is still high. So it's still, a great trend, and it's still moving up in a very big way, and it hits its level, and, right to the bottom of the trend, and bang, breaks. Oh, okay, now we're, it's broken 2, and 5 isn't our final number. Don't assume this 5 is like, 5 times it breaks, and that means X, right? We could break 10 times, we could break 15. This is dictated by legacy events, which we won't talk about today. It's dictated by legacy events. More importantly, here is starting to understand the viscosity of trends and how they work. So then, okay, fine. So we've broken another trend here. This is good. We've actually started to do something here. Let me break another trend down here. And this could possibly be not quite done this year. We've got to create kind of that low on the move. So right here, I would feel comfortable to say if this one breaks, we have another confirmed trend break. This one breaks right there. So it actually does break its next trend. So now we're kind of at medium viscosity. So this is just starting to dwindle off this move, right? It's starting to taper off. We've already broken 3 trends. So the viscosity is kind of reducing in this trade, and then we're at this point here, which is, you could possibly say that this never actually broke the trend because maybe on a higher time frame, it didn't actually create a low, and there is actually no low there. So actually I would say that is broken. You're simply fanning out trend here, and this trend is getting ready to stop supporting the move, right? Like we've already broken this trend, and the viscosity is getting lower on it, right? So, we've broken 3 trends. When we break 4 and 5, you have to kind of think of it like pull back to future of trading and creating cycles, and how we have a 1, which is a hold level, which is what we're seeing back here. And it'll bounce off a hold level to break a 2, to create a 3 and a 4 and a 5. Possibly we've already created that origin point right here. There's quite possibly an origin level right here. We can work back in time frames and find that origin level, which actually looks like it might be right here. This is the origin level right here. So eventually over time, if you were to flip this chart over and it's like, oh, here's an origin level and here's your hold level. So, you're going to hold this part of the move right here. We can simply delete this the greediest point and even the backside right here. That's fine. Backside, frontside combination. And if this continues to hold through this trend, it's eventually going to break this origin level and go after its upper range, which its upper range is right here, the final hold, which will create our final low. It is our final low, sorry, which will create our final trend, which creates its final hold of the move, right? So just in order to move down again. So when you flip this over, it becomes a little easier to see on the side of accumulation because we're so trained to see that. So, as we break this trend again, we are now starting to attack the origin point of this move. So let's say we just come back down and simply now we break this trend, right? This is kind of the points of reversal where you're going to start seeing reversal. So how much viscosity does it have left? And how many times is it broken? We step forward 1 in the future and we're going to say 4. Now the viscosity is getting kind of low. As you lose viscosity in a trend, what is an original trend? As you lose that viscosity, you're going after more of these origin points to have a collapse in the move. So then something interesting happened. So we use all of these trends, and this has kind of been this defining factor of how many holds it has and all these pieces together that we look at hold levels that create these trend points, and you're going to get to this final low. Something very interesting happens there, right? This goes to here. So fine, we've created that point here off of this hold level, which we know. This is what happens. At that point, this resets and it goes like this back to 0. It actually resets itself and goes viscosity high because this is now a different part of the move. This is now giving you your kind of polarized point that's controlling the entirety of all of this. So this is the polarized point that controls the entirety of all of this, right? You hit this final low that gives you your final hold level right here, which controls the entire segment of the leg. Because the viscosity counter resets because technically it's a new trend. It's a new trend that's going to have its own viscosity counter. So if it continues to move up and, it continues to move up like this and then this and breaks once and creates it off its next hold level and then has its own little hold level here. And then this fans out to here and it breaks that trend again. Like you're basically attacking this part of the move. You've already hit your final hold level, which creates your final low, which creates your actual final hold level. Because once this breaks, then the whole thing is collapsed, right? Because you're starting that laddering process all over again. So it becomes a moment of polarity as to where you see the viscosity in this move can just completely pull this thing back and destroy the move. So this is a really in-depth look at how we look at exterior trends, right? So this is the way in which trends control the market, right? Because levels become points where we buy and trends become points where price gets injected. Now that could be up or down, but trends are injection points, right? They're even if you were to just simply draw a trend from here to here, I guess you'd have to start at the top here. Start at the top here, draw this here, right? Accumulation to accumulation. That breaks up there, gives you this here, which has its own microcycle right here. And even like your little local interior trends, they all have the same thing where you have a hold level breaks through trend and blah, 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 right? And so forth, the move gets injected and even every parts of this have that, right? Like every single part, you'd have this from here to here, which would be accumulation to accumulation, hard closes to here. And then, even inside of this move, that means you would have had this to this, right? So that's fine. This exists everywhere. Or even like back here where you have this here to this here, right? Like it's just these local trends that dictate the pieces of the move, right? And then even here to here, right? That breaks up, making this the trend from here to here, right? Gives you that piece and so forth and so forth. Like the trends, they exist everywhere. They become injection points, right? But this is an important part of the chart to understand when we start to work with trends. And this is like a good way to look at exterior trends. But you have to understand this to understand how interior trends work, okay? So interior trends are something completely different. Interior trends are what dictates. How is the best way to say this? Exterior moments are dictated by interior events. So exterior moments are moments of polarity, and moments of polarity are dictated by the interior moments. So let me say that again because it's a little bit of a tongue twister. Exterior moments create polarity, and interior moments test polarity, right? So interior moments make the decisions at polarity, and exterior moments create that polarity. This is like I was saying before, this is a good overview of how we have to start looking at trends, because trends go very deep, and we've got quite a few lessons on trends. Just as with hold levels having a very deep breadth of information, very much past what you would expect at a surface level, trends do this as well. So trends have a lot of different rules and functionality that they have. This is the way we look at it. And again, we just, to kind of recap, we go back to, we have simply looked at exterior trends here in this whole area. We've simply looked at exterior trends. Interior will be next, right? Now we'll switch this over here because we're going to be on interior trends. What are we trying to create inside of all this? Has the final low been hit? No, then it can be hit. It's the greediest hold in the entirety of the move. When the final low has been hit, has the final hold been created? So that would be kind of the in-between moment. You have to find your final hold, and how much viscosity does it have is how you kind of rank your trend as time is going on. Okay, that's a good wrap up of exterior trends. Now, going back to what I was saying prior, exterior moments in our charts, so exterior trends, exterior levels, create moments of polarity. Polarity is spots in the chart where it's going to hit that for certain or for sure, and it is going to have a direct reaction straight up or straight down. This is polarity. This is how we know it's very black and white. It's a polarized moment, right? So this is polarity in our charts, or polarization, a polarized moment. This is created by exterior events. Interior events decide what happens at polarity. So exterior creates polarity, interior tests polarity. Okay, so exterior creates, interior tests. So just like exterior, we have interior parts of our move. So interior parts, by definition, are just the pieces that can independently live without any fraction to it, or any fracture, any pieces prior. When we look at these exterior trends, exterior levels, they're all sourced off of another event. Like a legacy event creates a global creates a local. So if you don't have a global, you can't have a local, because in order to have a local, you have to have it fractured from a global, which is fractured from a legacy. So you have to have these large overarching pieces of your chart. Hence the name legacy, global, local. Interior parts of the moves are completely independent and can exist anywhere you want. So like, for example, an interior trend would be like this to this, which would have its own little piece from here to here, possibly, which eventually ends up being down here, which eventually ends up being here. So even an interior moment can live right here, for example. So an interior moment, I would simply pin like this, right? An interior moment can have this trend right here, which ends up hitting a hold level down here, and so forth and so forth, and vice versa, right? It can have the same thing on the bottom side. So what we are going to do is, this is even 12 hours. So this is actually a truce to think that a 12 hour is an interior trend, but okay, fine, it can be. We're going to go even more interior. We're just going to pick kind of the middle of this and start here. So you can start by even, let's cut this off here. So we know what's going up. That's fine. We would expect that. You can even start by defining an interior trend like this, right? So we would just simply start here. We're just going to pick the very high of this move and kind of walk through. So you would start and define the interior moment there. So this is, interior moments can live independent of anything else, right? And so the greediest point in this move, this hold level back here, is holding up this. So you'd be somewhere like here. So as long as this can hold, your move is going up. So you have these interior moments that you really don't have to have a defining base criteria. They can exist, and an interior moment can sometimes exist for 5 minutes at a time, or it can exist for a spread of 15-minute candles, right? So even if we were to go right here, and we're just going to cut this off here, and maybe go to 1 minute candles or 3 minute candles, that's fine. We could even say that we would have criteria like this. This is trying to break here, which is creating this trend right here, which gives you that there, which is likely holding off of this backside right here, right? Backside right there is hit, which gives you your next point that needs to be held, which is right here. This test twice, that's fine. And then it gives you your next point here. So these are interior moments, right? Which gives you simply your next front side hold level right there, and so forth and so forth and so forth. Like it's all the same, right? And then, so if we were to go back to the 15-minute charts, we just saw kind of like the interior piece of a trend. So that's fine. Interior moments, they can exist independent of anything else. And it's the same thing, kind of like a viscosity counter. Like if this thing is going to move up, how many times does it have to break, right? Like here's the first trend break. This right here, that's second trend break. This right here probably fans out to here on a higher time frame. So then I would just even, cycle to a higher time frame and say, okay, fine, this broke here, and it created the, the swing there, which is probably just your first 15-minute trend. And so we hit play, and then you can see where. So you can see where this kind of final hold levels is almost like the same thing. Like you've created the hold here to whatever the level is here, front side here, and that's that same thing, right? Like that's that same. Okay, you've created trend. So once this trend breaks, you're likely going to have a move, and then it's going to happen. Stop trading view. Stop. Jesus, trading view is so slow. So then you're even going to have this right here, right? Like kind of this interior moment here. So this is kind of like your same local global legacy, where it is going to have that break there. Inside of this is going to have a local piece of the move that has to break right here, right? And so when that breaks, it starts to ladder here. So, interior moments, they can exist at any moment in time, but they are just defined by the larger events. So you can see even here, trading view still not stopping. That's fine. Actually go after the greediest hold down here, right here. So it hit the same hold level. It's still laddering up off this, which is actually just long-term holding this right here, right? So it's just long-term holding that and trying to create a ladder off what it's already holding, right? So this is part of a bigger part of the charts, but this interior trend, all starting back from the beginning here, you have these interior trends and these moments that exist like this, where you don't have to have it attached to anything, because all you're doing is testing the binds of what it is testing. So we're going to go into a live example and look at that on the charts today, and you can see where it does break this trend and create its ladder up, right? Like it's going to create its move up off this. So you notice that we didn't attach this trend here to anything. This trend back here, it didn't attach to anything. We just created it independent of all restrictions from the top, just to simply see what it's doing here. So if we want to say, oh, we have to go over top of this, well, we need to create an interior trend that's going to have another fan out point here, right? This probably didn't break on a higher time frame, right? Like a 15-minute or an hourly. You're starting to develop more of the chart. You can start to go into your fractal nature in this chart and start to work through those things. You can simply see that this isn't encumbered by anything else. This doesn't have a moment that it's saying, oh, there's an overarching piece here. We can't attach this right here, simply for the reason that it's not being touched by another trend. Well, interior trends, it's the beauty of them. They can be created in any moment in time, and they can exist anywhere, right? So